All right, everyone, here we go. A new season upon us. Verde and Black is back. I'm Adrian Healey, and delighted, obviously, to be joined for the first episode of the new season of our podcast by Austin FC head coach Josh Wolff. Josh, we did the first episode last year. It seemed in very, very different circumstances. We've now added some video component to it as well. So thank you again for coming on board and doing number one. I should tell you before we get started, Verde and Black brought to you by Swish Dental. Get your Swish smile today, and by PointsBet, the fastest growing online sportsbook in the United States. You've got your Swish smile on, Josh. It's that time of year again, isn't it? The start of a new season.
It is.
Is it still a special time for you after all these years? You and I have both had a lot of years in this league.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's certainly there's a lot to smile about. I think this organization is a very unique organization, and the fan base and the support that we have here is special. And year two, I think we learned a lot in year one, and we've come in and we've made some additions and some adjustments to what we expect it to look like this year, and it's been, I think, very beneficial. Preseason matches have gone well, but we're all excited. This time of the year, it's tough not to be happy. It's tough not to be smiling. Yeah. The season is upon us, and we're looking forward to the first game against Cincinnati. I'm
interested in how your relationship with the game has kind of evolved over the years, from growing up to becoming a player, and then making it as a player, and then assistant coach to coach. I mean, my relationship has definitely changed, progressing through the broadcasting world. What's your experience been like?
It's very different. I think as a player, you come into this space trying to figure out how I'm gonna make a mark, how am I gonna make it, then how do you sustain it, and it's very much more of an individual. Like how do you now stay in a space and compete for time and minutes and look to make a career? And then now as a coach, you're managing 30 players, and you're managing 20, 30 staff members, and there's a lot that goes into that, and that's there's always going to be growth as a player and as a coach. But this offseason was great. We had a lot of reflection. I had a lot of reflection about what last year looked like, and with the staff and with a lot of people around the league. So it was very beneficial.
I mentioned how special this time of year is. It really is for everyone, and no matter whether you're a fan, what club you're a fan of, what league you follow, starting from scratch again. Everyone starts at zero. It makes it a special time. But is it even more special in MLS, where it feels like, with the parity situation that it is, it always feels like fans of any club can dare to dream.
I think that's right. I think the parity in our league and the way the league is set up from a structure standpoint, and certainly the way the schedule lays out, there is the understanding that from year to year, there can be a lot of change. Yeah. There can be a lot of change in where teams finish, and there can be a lot of growth within a team based on additions or based on subtractions. So we think we've addressed some of those issues, and we expect to make some significant advances this year on the field as well as in the standings. And that's reflective of what our ambitions are as a club, what our fans' ambitions are. And I think they've been well received, and the players are excited to get in, back into, certainly get back into the training center, but get back to Q2 and start playing and competing for games.
Do you like that fact that really anyone at this stage can believe their team can win? And as a coach of a team, I wonder how that affects. Basically, the coach of Augsburg in the German Bundesliga at the start of the year isn't really expected to win the league or even finish top four. Does that change the dynamic with it being such a fine margins involved in this league?
That's a good way to phrase it. The margins are very thin in our league, and the opportunity for results can waver drastically. We are a unique league that has lots of travel. We play through the summer, so there's plenty of things that each team, the coaches have to obviously deal with throughout the season. But it's also part of where we are. It's a competitive league, and there's a lot of turnover in coaches. There's a lot of turnover in players, and this is another great opportunity for us to one, start the season well and grow on what we started last year as a year one team. And we expect the second year to be much, much better.
I always refer to it as a parity omelet, because everything is level. Lots of different flavors in that omelet, but the omelet is level, and everything within it. Having said that, people like me are often asked to make predictions, Josh, and I hate being asked to make predictions. I just, I don't know if you guys do privately, but when you're asked to make a public prediction, to me, especially in this league, you're just guessing. So I know asked about this in the press conference recently, but what do you make of some national pundits basically not writing Austin off completely, but saying, hey, they're not going to finish higher than 10th in the West, or putting them number 23 in the power rankings? Is that bulletin board material? I mean, can you frame that and put it up there?
Yeah, it's already been shown around. I think Felipe came in with it. Alex came in with it. Our players are aware of it. I think our fans will probably see that and certainly be a little put off by it as well. And we also got to keep in mind those MLS experts are the same ones that felt Danny Pereira wasn't the right choice last year when we took him.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And we took him in and we brought him in and helped develop.
Philip Mayake. I remember that. Yeah.
So I think you got to keep that in perspective as well. They have to form an opinion, and for us, we'll use it a little bit as fuel, but we got to go out and prove to everyone, ourselves as well, that who we are and what we're about, and get results. And I think that's what we'll look to do. Obviously, we'll use that in its own way, but we're not too concerned by it.
Yeah. I love that Felipe was all over it, already bringing a copy of it.
Yeah, we got great personality in that locker room. Felipe immediately brings a lot of attention and certainly some pizzazz to the locker room. And it's been a great addition so far.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of those predictions, call it lazy, call it what you will, they're simply based on what happened last year. Yeah. And with the benefit of hindsight now, Josh, having kind of had the dust settle on the year, and maybe even, let me ask you this: how will you look back on the first year, maybe in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, when you're remembering 2021? What do you think will be the first thing that comes to mind for you?
Insightful. I think there was a lot of growth and a lot of learning in that first year, and again, we had to navigate some things that we probably didn't expect. You don't expect to not have strikers, and you didn't expect to lose your left back 10 minutes into a game, and obviously it was disappointing. Segura couldn't find any minutes, so players that we thought would have contributions did it, and again, so once that happens, you move on quickly, and now it's about playing the games and being as competitive as possible. I look at the year as, again, we established our identity. We were on the road for 8 games. We played tremendous soccer at times, and the inability to score goals, the lack of having a true striker, really affected us, and it affected our morale and certainly any kind of momentum that we were unable to achieve. But as we brought in certainly Moussa Jite and Sebastian, I think things started to move in a much better direction, and the additions that we've made this year, I think, really address some of the things that we lacked. We have much more personality and character in the locker room, and just much more quality, goals, championships, leadership, and domestically and internationally. So those are things I think that we're very excited about. But it takes learning. There's no doubt about it. Every year is going to provide an opportunity to learn, and I looked at myself hard and talked to coaches about it, and I think we're in a better place tactically and personally.
You get to wave a magic wand and redo one thing about the first year. My God, if I could go back and correct some of the things I've done as a broadcaster, I would love that. But if you had that ability to change one decision you made, one event that happened in year one, what? But you could only choose one. It'd be more in the roster build, having another striker, just so we weren't so handicapped and struck by that. I mean, we tried using certainly Cecilio and Johnny up top, and it's taking them out of their natural position. So a little bit better in the roster build, I think. But there's lots of decisions that you can always Monday morning quarterback. But again, those provide learning, and we know a little bit better about ourselves and our team, and I think we're better for it in the long run. It is pretty remarkable. I think about this a lot, that we went through as much of the year one without a recognized striker. But you've already referenced it, Josh. There were a lot of things that happened that were kind of out of our control in year one. But there's also a long-term plan. There's clearly a long-term vision and a plan, and part of constructing that year one roster was obviously the start of that plan. You, however, are a coach who has to deal with the week to week fluctuations. You're expected to win, no matter what the long-term plan is. So navigating that dynamic must have been interesting the first year. I mean, there must have been times where I bet you wished they would have gone out and signed another striker and from within the league, but that wasn't part of the plan.
No, there's certainly, we addressed it as the season went on. We brought Moussa in, and that did help. He was obviously in a place where he was gaining fitness, but again, I think there's lots of things that that we're very good about the first year, and there's plenty of things that I don't think we addressed along the way quite as we should have. I mean, we gave up a lot of goals in transition, and from a structure standpoint, just a balance while we attack. I think that's something I look back on and obviously could give more care and more diligence to, and that's what we've been addressing this preseason. But we've enhanced the roster and we've added quality and personality, and I think that goes a long way in our league. I think being in this league and understanding the dynamic of what a locker room looks like and the need for real team spirit and camaraderie is critical. The COVID thing, I think, is what was probably the biggest shock. Not having been in that space and not being able to be around players and families, even the traveling, coming back after games, it was something that I wasn't, certainly hadn't been exposed to yet. And that probably caught me more off guard than I expected it to.
Yeah. One of the phrases we thought about a lot, and I think Claudio actually used this publicly, was we were so close to being what we wanted to be. And you look at how you guys did against the better teams in the West.
Yeah.
Sporting Kansas City, Seattle, Portland, Minnesota, Colorado. Yeah, better results came against the better teams.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've reflected upon that as a coaching staff, and maybe the more undesirable results came against teams lower down in the standings. Was there a reason you were able to find for that, or?
Yeah, I don't know the reason, but it shows you in our league the parity you're talking about is every game is important. Every opponent, regardless of where they are in the standings, can make it difficult and can challenge you. And we did that to, obviously we finished where we finished, and we made it really difficult on some of the better teams. And you need to be fully focused and engaged regardless of the opponent, regardless of it being at home or on the road. And again, that's also for us knowing we had a number of guys that weren't in our league previously, and those that maybe weren't as utilized in the year previously. So that, I think, was part of last year as well. Is now these new players getting a little more understanding and onboarding of what our league looked like, the climate, the travel, just the overall appearance of what our games look like, and even for some of the domestic guys, we when you're building a roster, you realize all those guys aren't playing significant minutes the year before. They maybe aren't out and out starters all the time. So we're building into that. And again, I think the starting point this year is much, much better. The foundation of the way we play and the idea of how we want to play is there. And now we have to get much better in just certainly some of the situational aspects. And we're looking forward to it.
It feels night and day, Josh, the atmosphere, just being here. And being around the guys compared to a year ago. I mean, everything is different, isn't it?
I think so. Again, I think the COVID piece is certainly still subsiding, but the on-field interactions, the off-field interactions have been much better, and that's something that Claudio and we've talked with certainly a lot of the players and the leadership council to keep pushing that, and that family, that familiarity, that brotherhood that you build off the field really goes a long way. And along the way, we obviously got to keep refining what we're doing and make the adjustments. But it's a much more, it's just a stronger group from top to bottom, and that's what I think everyone's most excited about.
In making this transition from year one to year two, did you guys look at all? Every club is different, but there's an interesting pattern with expansion teams. Certainly in recent seasons in MLS. I don't know if you looked at that, the last 8 teams to come into the league. Basically, you can split it down the middle. 4 of them have got better from year 1 to year 2, and the other 4 have either stayed the same or regressed. And the constant factor seems to be, Josh, not too much change. In playing stuff. Yeah,
I think that's an important part. I think when you look at the most successful teams in this league, there's consistency in the leadership, there's consistency in the management, there's consistency in the players, and constant fluctuation is very disruptive. So we have, again, a game model and an identity that we wanted to establish. I think we did that, and I think that was well received by our fans and certainly around the league and talking to people. We have to become certainly a little more cutthroat in some areas, but I think the consistency in the group is really, really important. We've added players and quality that as we've talked about, but not making wholesale big changes is I think part of it. It keeps it keeps things fairly stable, and Claudio and I talk very candidly about what this group looks like and what the needs are, and where we are as a group. So there was plenty of positives to take away from the first year. Disappointment, without a doubt, disappointment, but plenty of positives. And again, now we have a direction that we feel we're going in a good way.
What's your relationship with Claudio like, and has it changed since you were part of the same team. People always assume teammates are, have a certain relationship, are very close.
Yeah, I think it's again, it's a working relationship. We talk about the game in a very open way, a pretty clear way, and we share our ideas. And again, I look to him for feedback from games, and certainly getting candid feedback is really important. But he's quite supportive of what we're doing, and we as a group, coaching staff, scouting staff, we talked wholeheartedly in the off season what our needs were, and to get us in a good space to where we can now come out and certainly be more competitive in all of our matches. And again, I think Claudia and I's relationship is strong, certainly strong.
Yeah, and there was always a degree of clarity about what you thought you needed this offseason. You kept on mentioning depth and speed, and and the amount of MLS experience you've also brought in. People underestimate how important that is, don't they?
They do. I mean, the league MLS is it's very much it's still a growing league, but it's very different from European leagues and South American leagues, I think, and that's there is the need for this understanding of the league internally with the domestic players, but you also need to bring in the quality that can help lift the domestic talent, but also decide games. I mean, that's part of this, and I think we've added Ethan and Maxi, who are guys that have played in this league, won championships, been playing for champions, scored a boatload of goals, both of them. We brought in Ruben and Johan Valencia, who are two real character pieces. Ruben has been a captain everywhere he's been, has a great voice on the field, and quickly has established that in our locker room. And Johan Valencia is a highly technical, talented player at a great age. And again, we've got players here that are equally talented and in a good place. So with those additions, I didn't mention Felipe, but those additions go a long way in making a group more complete, and that's where we really feel we are right now.
Felipe, great addition as well, and perhaps one that doesn't come into the same category, but almost the most unexpected addition of the year, maybe Kip Keller, who you can't have expected to get in that draft. We opened up against Cincinnati. That was a gift from Cincinnati. I'm not quite sure how they didn't take him, Josh.
Yeah, we saw Kip, and we looked at we looked at a lot of guys, certainly as the season ended, and trying to identify which college players we would want to go after and who we thought would be available. And Kip was right there, and the fact that he was available made it a very clean, quick, easy decision. And he hasn't disappointed. His hunger to learn, his eagerness to play and compete are evident every day. He'll instantly has become certainly a fan favorite. He works tirelessly. He's got great athleticism, and he's learning. He's taking in what we're trying to do. It's not going to be perfect for him all the time, but I think the players have responded well to him for sure. They give him a hard time at times, but that's because they love him, and they know he's going to help us.
How do you feel now about potentially having much more of a headache when it comes to picking that starting eleven every week? Yeah, no,
it's a good thing. I think the quality is definitely there, more so than we could have imagined coming from last year, and that's also part of understanding our league. We know year one you're not going to have all the pieces that you're going to need, but you are building a team, and in year two it's certainly shedding some players and bringing in new ones, and we've got decisions to make, which is a good thing. We got plenty of positional competition, and that's something that's going to unfold as the season goes. But that's good for us to have difficult decisions.
There's a famous Sir Alex Ferguson quote, Josh, saying, he'd been in the game as long as he had. He said he'd mastered a lot of elements of coaching. The one thing he hadn't mastered was how to keep the guys happy. He has to leave out in the game as long as he had. He said,
it's communication. I think the big part of it is staying in touch with these players and communicating them, and again, trying to build that cohesion inside the locker room, off the field. As much interaction as we can have as a group, but also with myself and the staff with the players. It's important that they feel wanted, they feel respected, and feel needed. They're all going to be needed at some point. It's a long season. We got regular season, we got Open Cup, and there'll be some friendlies along the way. So there'll be plenty of opportunity, but consistency and performances will determine how much players will play, and that's what this comes down to in our business.
How do you navigate that fine line? And it is a fine line, I believe, between players feeling comfortable and relaxed and able to perform at their best, and getting too comfortable and too relaxed.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think complacency is not something you want in any workplace or in sports. So knowing that you have competition right there behind you is important, and I think we have that more so this year. And again, that's going to unfold quickly as the seasons as the season starts, and points are up for grabs and positions are up for grabs. So, and we talk openly about that, but it's also about supporting your brother. When your number's not called, you're still a good teammate. You're still right there helping one another along, because again, things change quickly and the dynamic changes quickly. So everyone's role has to be, most important, and that's what we're going to look to do. It's a long season, but game 1 is Saturday, and guys are excited for it.
You talk about supporting your brothers. How about supporting your son? How is it? I mean, is that a changing sort of dynamic for you as you see Owen now progress and become a full professional? And it's not the first son of yours with Tyler in Atlanta.
Yeah. I think it's been really interesting watching him play. I think when I first brought him here, he was having some issues with his back, and it was more with the idea of getting him healthy. But he started training with us right away, and physically where he was at, what he's able to do, and then as he's progressed over this last year, it's been really nice to see, and he's got lots to add, and Claudio's eyes are and certainly expertise in this area has been quite helpful as well. I mean, he identifies things quickly, and Owen's growing, but his performances on the field when he has played has been nice to see. He hasn't played enough games, so for his development, it's what's most needed is games, and he's going to be in a position to compete for minutes. But we also need to find some minutes for him. But it's good. It's good to see him out there. I'd say I treat him just as any other player. I try to talk to him in a way that's still guiding and teaching and keeping him sharp. But when we go home, we don't spend a ton of time talking about the game. I know he needs his space. He's still a young man, and there's plenty of soccer around him all the time, as there always has been. But I'm happy with his development so far.
You get him out on the golf course and teach him a lesson out there. Yeah.
I wish I could say that.
I hear he's really good out there.
Sadly, that as I've gotten older, they've gotten stronger and much better at just about everything, whether it's golf, tennis, or anything that we do. So he's an athletic kid, but
how's Tyler doing, by the way, in Atlanta? Is he?
Tyler's doing well. I think he's really enjoyed. It's challenging. The league is challenging. You mentioned consistency in a team. He's had 4 coaches in just over a year and a half, maybe 5 coaches. So I think with the new coach there, and certainly the new direction, he's pretty excited by it, and he's seen good minutes with the first team, and he's performed relatively well in preseason. But as I say with anybody, you have to perform and you have to keep progressing, and that's how you'll be evaluated.
It's interesting you mentioned the coaching there. Gonzalo Pineda, former assistant coach, obviously in Seattle, and to my mind, it's an increasing trend which you were obviously part of. Pat Noonan, Paolo Nagamura, Ezra Hendrickson, all taking charge for the first time, all having been assistants. Yeah,
it's exciting. I remember when we'd go into some of our preseason, it would be the college combines, and Commissioner Garber would get up and talk about the league and the state of the league, and how many coaches from players to coaches it's become, and that trend has continued. I think it speaks volumes about our development of players, but also our development of coaches, and it's nice to see other players getting the opportunity. It's certainly not easy. It's challenging in a lot of ways, but you try to put a staff together that's going to help support you as a coach and help obviously build out a team in the right way, and you do your best to marry up those things. But it's nice to see more players getting opportunity to coach.
And it does seem to be the case that that opportunity is presented in this league. I look for similar examples in the top European leagues, and you struggle to find them, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different dynamic. Again, I think the way that rosters are, when you have a salary cap and you have the rules of our league, it's challenging for some European coaches or South American coaches to come in and navigate that. It is challenging, but it's not to say you can't do it and have success. There's been plenty of examples of that being the case. But when I look at the more successful teams in our league, the more successful organizations, again, the consistency in leadership, the consistency in coaching, very good understanding of what this league's been about over the course of 25 years. It goes a long way. It goes a long way. It doesn't assure success, but it does put you in a pretty good place to have that success.
What's your take on the West this year, Josh? Just a couple more questions before we get to some viewer questions too. The Western Conference, it was an interesting year last year because some of both the LA teams failed to qualify for the playoffs. Colorado, I don't think many people had Colorado winning the West before the start, or finishing top of the table in the regular season. What's your take on the dynamic? Because this does seem to be some, the traditional power teams are still there, but are they as strong? Seattle, Sporting Kansas City, Portland, I guess there are some questions. What's your, as you assess this conference you're about to start year 2 in?
It's a challenging conference. I think both conferences have really good teams, but I think as the season went along, you certainly saw the familiar faces rising back into the playoff picture and certainly getting in position to push. I think Colorado was, to a lot of people a surprise, but they did a great job. They did a great job building out the roster, and certainly Frazier did a great job implementing his ideas with that group, and they progressed well throughout the season. So it's going to be a challenging year again in our conference, without a doubt. But we believe we're part of that discussion. We believe that we can go in and compete with all these teams, as we did for the most part last year. But we've got to find ways to get more results, and that's going to be something we key on.
Oh, and by the way, we had Nashville to the Western Brew as well, just for good measure. Yeah, one of the best teams in the East.
Yeah, it was. But it was good. It was good to play them. Obviously, have a little bit of familiarity with the East Coast, but the imbalance and certainly the scheduling was part of what last year was. But we move on.
Well, you talk about schedule, Josh, and just want to get your thoughts finally on the start to the year, not specifically opening day, but maybe the first 4 or 5 weeks. It couldn't be more different, obviously, to the start of year 1 in terms of everything. Really.
Yeah, well, being at home for the first couple is nice. We played, I think, what was it, 8 of the first 9 or 9 of the first 10 on the
8
road.
In a row
so
on the road.
So it'll be nice to play at home. Q2 is unlike any other experience in the league, and that has to do with the stadium, our fans, certainly our ownership's commitment to the game. But the atmosphere is fantastic. It's electric, and we look forward to starting at home. And we need to get results at home, and for us, that's going to be extremely important in these first 2 games. And it gets challenging quickly. Obviously, the opponents are going to be East Coast opponents, West Coast opponents, so they all have weight in their own way. But it's game by game for us, and again, the first one's the most important one, and we want to get this thing rolling in the right direction.
Great stuff. You're listening or watching to Verde and Black with Josh Wolff, Adrian Healey. Swish Dental, get your Swish smile today. PointsBet, the fastest growing online sportsbook in the United States, are our proud partners. Josh, I did throw it out there to the fans to send in a few questions. The more off-kilter, the better was how I phrased it. So maybe take you in a few different directions with this. Brian Henley wants to know the favorite game you've ever been a part of, either playing or coaching, which is putting you on the spot there.
Playing or coaching?
Either. I mean, assistant coach, head coach, playing, your long playing career. If you had to pick one game as your favorite game.
Playing again. Playing. There's memorable ones. Beating Mexico is always memorable.
Yeah.
Beating them at the World Cup was extremely memorable. Beating them in Columbus was quite memorable in qualifying. So those are some really memorable ones. Memorable ones inside the league. Again, I think winning MLS Cup in '98 as an expansion team was quite memorable. Being part of that and winning obviously the Open Cup as well. So we pulled the double in '98. As a coach. In certain games, I think one of our first games in Columbus was we played in Seattle and had a tremendous game. It was back and forth. It was just a wild game. We ended up winning it at the very end, but it was just eye-opening.
Like a 4-3 game?
It was 3-2 or 4-3. Justin Miriam scored one late. But just to get now from the coaching side, I worked with Benny in DC and became an assistant with Greg in Columbus. But that was a very memorable game, and as well as winning the Open Cup with Benny in DC. We had a really trying year, and we were able to win in Salt Lake, and was quite memorable.
Remember that well.
Some different ones.
Couple of questions about the off-season. Los Nerdes Verdes and I'm a Star Wars. I always love these Twitter handles. Basically, it's the same question. Do you feel additional time/experience gained through the off-season has built up chemistry with the team? And the other part of that is, what would you say players have improved on over the off-season?
Absolutely. I think we didn't get to have a trip to Florida for preseason, so from that standpoint, you lose maybe a little bit of where you're away from well, not away from your family, but you're more as a group and just a little bit more isolated and be able to to do things more as a group. But we've managed to do that here in Austin as well. We've done some pitch and putt together. We've had meals together. So without a doubt, the camaraderie and the chemistry on and off the field is much, much better. So from that standpoint, we're extremely excited.
That pitch and putt, I tell you got Dylan Fratelli chomping at the bit. He's like, I need to be there.
Yeah, no.
Next year.
And more than welcome. He's more than welcome. I played with him. I've played with him.
I've played
quite
nine with him, Josh, and that is quite the
professional athletes. It's professional golfers. It's pretty wild to see how
it's
simple
a whole
it is.
different level.
It really
they make
is.
you tee off 50 yards in front for starters.
And we need it. And we need every little bit of that. But yeah, it's been a good start for the guys for sure. And then tactically on the field, I think they're in a much better place as well.
Right. Brad, really harking back to last year, but some of the changes this year. What's your ideal plan for player usage this year, considering there are far fewer midweek games this year? So many times last year, you were at 3 games in 7 days.
Yeah, it was challenging. Again, I think that last year, we had 7 or 8 of those 3 games in a week, and it was challenging. And I think that's where COVID made it more challenging than ever. This year, again, we have. We want to win, plain and simple. We want to be a team that's in the playoffs. We want to win games, and we have less schedule congestion, as you already mentioned. So that shouldn't play nearly the role that it did last year. And again, we have more competition and more quality within our group. So less on squad rotation. These guys should be fit and strong, and we should have our for me anyway. The understanding is we're going to play the best 11 we can, and we don't have to rotate guys that often. So that'll be the starting point for us.
There's a second part to the Brad question, very differently, and also Chris Nella weighs in with similar question. Brad said, also, are you cool if we howl when Teen Wolf schools? And Chris says, what would you like the supporters to sing for Owen?
I hope you're singing. If you're singing for Owen, that's a good thing. That means he's playing and he's performing. So I got no problem with anybody howling, singing, anything.
Because they will.
Yeah,
absolutely, they will.
It's good. And I gave Owen a little shtick in one of our meetings the other day when we played Atlas, and taking his chances. He got a couple good opportunities, and the next couple days in training, he was banging in goals. So the guys were giving me some stick. That's all you have to do to provoke him. It was pretty impressive. But
nice.
I hope so. I hope he plays. I hope he performs, and we'll just have to see how the season goes.
There's going to be some howling somewhere before the end of the year from Los Verdes. Chris Watson, 8 o'clock kickoff, which obviously we're not going to have for the first few weeks, but if you got a late in the day kickoff, what are you eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and why are all 3 meals not tacos?
Well, the tacos here are tremendous. I'm a food lover, a bit of a food snob, so I would agree. You could have tacos at every meal, and I enjoy that. But 8 p.m. kickoffs, whether home or away, are challenging. You're literally eating all day, or you have the opportunity to eat all day. But I think I try to keep it fairly light. I don't run or work out quite as much as I used to, so keeping meals to a minimum are good. But I love food. A good breakfast downtown or a good lunch is good.
Is game day different? I mean, do you eat anything differently what's different about a game day for you as a coach? Obviously, as a player, it was a little different, but are you kind of the same?
No, I don't. From a meal standpoint, I don't change too much in that way. I mean, if we're on the road, obviously the dynamic is a little different. But at home, if there's time, my wife and I will try to go with the kids and go downtown and grab something somewhere, or we'll just stay at home and keep it easy.
All right. Rocky Perez and J Car 87 both want to hear a little bit more about the dynamics of language in the club and how communication happens, which I know I know you've been learning Spanish. I'm behind you in that regard with my Duolingo. Been very neglectful of that, but how does that happen? How do you get your message across? Someone like Musa Jite, or I know Spanish is the predominant second language, but
well, I think Musa's a different challenge. Musa's he's also learning English as well, but we have staff members that speak French. Felipe speaks about 6 languages, and I think Davey Arnaud is a coach that speaks French. Alex also speaks French. Now having Ruben here, so there's ways to again utilize other players and staff to help us with that. Spanish, again, I think I have a good enough grasp of the Spanish to be able to communicate on the field and enough in the meetings with guys. And again, the Cecilios and Sebastian, these guys speak English as well, so it is helpful in that regard. And we still want all of our Spanish speaking guys to continue to develop their English, the English language. And I myself am going to continue to build on my Spanish language. So
I'm right there with you, Josh. Just it's tough, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
finding the hours in the day.
Yeah.
Is,
No, it is.
It's always a challenge.
It is.
Joe Duke. This is one more maybe we'll finish up with because it's kind of a wide question. He wants to know what teams inspired your style of play the most, the style of play you're trying to instigate as a coach, and maybe take that a little bit further.
Yeah.
Just what teams you enjoy watching. What teams make you smile when you see them play?
I mean, I like watching good soccer. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's not just one team.
Yeah.
I watch so much soccer. It's English soccer, certainly Spanish soccer.
Yeah.
So. A little bit of the German soccer as well. So for me, I'm just looking. When I watch games, it's hard to watch just for entertainment. I'm looking at tactically what is a team trying to do, what are they trying to achieve, and what's the opponent now trying to do to deal with that. So, plenty of England. You name it, I watch. In England and in the same throughout Spain. But I enjoy watching. Just about. Soccer in any country because everything's a little bit different, and for me, that's the important part: is to keep looking, to keep watching, but be open to keep learning.
Yeah.
Really important.
Is it possible for you to switch off and just watch purely for the enjoyment and as a fan? Because I get asked this a lot. Can you do that as a commentator? Do you ever stop commentating? And I actually have to mentally switch off to allow that to happen.
It's tough. It's challenging. I find myself just in an analysis standpoint. That's just the way I've kind of been programmed since I've become a coach to look at things. But I guess when my daughter's playing, I try to keep that in perspective. A U11's girls game going, I'm trying to watch.
You're not that parent on the side.
I'm just trying to be supportive of Ella and be encouraging, but not look at it through the tactical lens, more from the father daughter. But I enjoy watching soccer, whether it's Klopp's team, whether it's Pep's team, Tuchel's team, any of those. I'm looking at the tactical elements.
Looking at what they're doing.
I think so. And that's just the way I've become programmed.
Yeah. Great stuff, Josh. Really, really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on here.
Terrific start to year two, and the best of luck moving forward. We are all absolutely psyched.
Yep.
Can't wait.
Likewise. Glad to be back at it, and looking forward to getting to Q2 and getting this thing started. But really looking forward to seeing the fans again and getting us some wins, getting this thing going in the right direction.
Great stuff. All right, everyone. Josh Wolff, head coach of Austin FC. Thanks for being a part of the first Verde and Black podcast of the new season. We'll talk to you next time.